So you're planning on watching the Ahsoka series, but you haven't seen any Star Wars Rebels and worried that you're not going to understand some aspects to the Ahsoka series with the plot. You haven't got time to watch all the Star Wars Rebels or even the essential episodes. Don't worry, I'm going to give you a very brief breakdown of the essential plot points in Star Wars Rebels that I think will lead into Ahsoka. First off, we have Ezra Bridger. He's basically Space Aladdin. He's on his own, his parents aren't around, and he's stealing to survive. He's living on a planet called Lothal, and he bumps into the Ghost Crew. The Ghost Crew are a group of rebels who are also stealing something from the Empire that Ezra is also trying to steal at the same time, to which their paths cross. Ezra actually gets away with the case of stuff that the Ghost Crew is trying to steal, and then the Empire are after them both. With the Ghost Crew keen after this stuff that Ezra has stolen, they invite him onto their ship to escape from the Empire who's chasing him there and then, and he spends a little bit of time with them. During that time, amongst a lot of banter, they actually accept Ezra onto the crew. The crew consisting of Kanan Jarrus, who is a former Jedi who survived Order 66 as a Padawan and is keeping his Jedi-ness under wraps. Hera Syndulla, who is the head of the Ghost Crew and pilot of the Ghost Ship. She is a Twi'lek from Ryloth. Sabine Wren, who is a Mandalorian, we don't know much about at this point. Zeb, who is basically a purple, less hairy Wookiee. From the planet the Sun, who's one of the last of his species of the Lasats. And Chopper, the very misbehaving droid. Kanan, being a Jedi, sees something in Ezra, Force sensitivity, and decides to take him in. Throughout this time, the Empire has sent out Inquisitors to hunt down Jedi. These Inquisitors are basically ex-Jedi or Force-sensitive people who are not Sith, although they have a red lightsaber, but more just kind of like dark side of the Force assassins. Throughout Season 1, we see Hera speaking to an unknown code name called Fulcrum, who's basically giving her orders of things to do on missions, but no one else knows who this person is. Throughout Season 1 as well, we see something unique in Ezra, that he has a very strong Force bond with animals, and actually creates a Force bond with Purrgil, which are basically space whales, who are basically where hyperspace travel came from. At the end of the series, you have a big fight with the Grand Inquisitor, Kanan. Grand Inquisitor dies, kind of letting himself go, and Fulcrum is revealed to be Ahsoka as part of a wider rebel cell, and they're trying to bring different smaller rebel groups together to build an army. Then going into Season 2, with the Grand Inquisitor gone, Vader is now the one trying to hunt down Jedi, along with two more lesser Inquisitors. But a couple of conflicts with Vader, the rebels just about manage to get away, and Ahsoka can sense something about this Vader. Throughout this season as well, we are also introduced to an older Captain Rex who Kanan doesn't necessarily trust because he doesn't trust clones because everything that happened in Order 66, but they eventually form a bromance. Ezra and Kanan go to the Jedi temple they find on Lothal, and while separated they both speak to Master Yoda, Ezra asking him how to defeat the Sith and Inquisitors, and Yoda telling him about Malachor. Ghost Crew then travel to this unknown planet Malachor, and underneath the surface of the planet are a bunch of basically statues of Jedi and Sith that perished in a big battle. Ezra gets separated from Kanan and Ahsoka, who are fighting Inquisitors who follow them to this planet, and Ezra ends up meeting a mysterious figure who turns out to be Darth Maul. Ezra, not knowing anything about Darth Maul, ends up kind of befriending him, not too sure on him. Effectively, Maul wants Ezra to be his Sith apprentice. Ezra trusts Maul a little bit too much, and this ends up with Maul betraying them and fighting Kanan, blinding him in the process. Once they get to the top of this temple in the middle, it turns out to be a Sith weapon. Vader shows up, breaks Ezra's lightsaber, and ends up fighting Ahsoka. Ahsoka fighting Vader as the Sith temple walls kind of close like doors, and she pushes Ezra out to safety. This is the last we see of Ahsoka, assuming that she died in a fight with Vader. In Season 3, Ezra blames himself for what happened to Kanan, but trusting Maul. Ezra's now taken on a lot more responsibility, leading some missions, changing his entire look, and sporting a more classic Jedi lightsaber compared to his more staple gun blaster one before. Kanan's still trying to deal with the fact he's now blind, and through his Force sensitivity meets a spirit in the forest, who's basically like a big tree thing. He's called the Bendu, and basically he repeats many a time, he is neither Sith or Jedi, he is the one in the middle, very neutral Force thing. Maul is still after Ezra to be his apprentice, and Ezra is obviously very reluctant after what happened to Kanan. At some point throughout their travels, Sabine actually ends up finding the Darksaber that Maul was hiding in his kind of lair. If you haven't watched Clone Wars to see how Maul ended up with a Darksaber, that's a completely different thing, I can't cover it in all this speed. However, Sabine effectively becomes the rightful owner of the Darksaber after defeating Maul. We also find a little bit more about Sabine's backstory. Being a Mandalorian, being very intelligent and cocky of herself, she tried to challenge herself to do something just to see if she could do it. And it was successful. It was basically a machine that would target Mandalorian armor and vaporize anyone inside. With this, she was effectively exiled from Mandalore for turning on her own people in a way. However, when going back to Mandalore and wielding the Darksaber, she doesn't feel that she's the rightful ruler of Mandalore and offers it to Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan accepts this, and then if you've seen everything that happens in the Mandalorian series, this is why Bo-Katan will no longer accept the Darksaber from someone, because when she accepted it from Sabine without winning it in battle, that led to the Siege of Mandalore. Throughout all of Season 3 as well, we have a new villain introduced being Grand Admiral Thrawn, who's a master tactician and very intelligent in military combat. Near the end of Season 3, Thrawn has the rebel base cornered, to which Kanan calls upon the Bendu to step in. Whilst the Bendu doesn't want to for a lot of time, I'm the one in the middle, blah blah blah, he ends up stepping in the end, trying to get everyone off of his planet effectively. Going into the final season, probably the most essential one, Ezra is starting to get more of a Force bond with animals, specifically Lothcats. Hera ends up getting captured by the Empire, and the rebels try to go in to save her. During this time though, Kanan sacrifices himself to stop an explosion from getting the rest of the rebels, pushes them out of the way whilst he then dies. Whilst Ezra is in mourning, he's approached by a Lothwolf who seems to be force sensitively talking to him, who ends up providing him with an ancient stone that's actually Mortis god hand gestures. Again, if you haven't watched Clone Wars, that won't make too much sense to you. But anyway, the crew then band together to find out what the Empire are doing on Lothal. Turns out the Empire are excavating parts of the Lothal Jedi Temple. Ezra, then seeing a painting of the Mortis gods in the rock, goes over to it and with force sensitivity happens to unlock it effectively, which leads to a doorway being opened in the stone next to it. Ezra manages to go through before the Empire catch him, and this leads him to the world between worlds. Hearing lots of different voices here, he happens to hear Ahsoka, and then going to a portal, he happens to see Ahsoka and Morai, Ahsoka's owl. He's a glimpse of the fight between Vader and Ahsoka from a couple of years ago. Just as Vader's about to strike his last blow and kill Ahsoka, Ezra pulls her out just in time. Ahsoka's obviously very confused and dazed as to what's just happened, and then a little bit down the road in the world between worlds, they can hear Kanan's voice. However, if Ezra pulls him out of this moment, the explosion will kill the rest of the Ghost crew, so he has to let Kanan sacrifice himself. Both Ahsoka and Ezra bond over the fact that they couldn't save their masters. Then they hear another voice, which is Palpatine trying to get through one of these portals, which is obviously why the Empire are there on this Lothal Jedi Temple. With blue force fire from Palpatine kind of chasing them away, Ahsoka and Ezra split ways, and Ezra says to her, "When you get back, come and find me." Ahsoka then goes off to we don't know where. We went through some opening in the world between worlds, so we're not sure if she's gone back a couple of years or to that exact moment somewhere else. Anyway, Ezra gets back, and Thrawn launches a siege on Lothal. Thrawn is effectively firing upon the innocent people of the city of Lothal unless Ezra sacrifices himself to go up to their ship. The rest of the Ghost crew don't want him to do this, but Ezra knows it's the only way to stop Thrawn from killing innocent people. Once up there, it turns out there's effectively a hologram of Palpatine, and they've reassembled a section of the Jedi Temple. Palpatine needs Ezra to unlock this section of the temple as a Jedi, and Palpatine shows Ezra a glimpse of an alternative reality where Ezra's parents are still alive, and says that if he unlocks it, he can go to that alternative reality. Ezra knows it's a trap and pulls the Jedi Temple down upon himself, escaping just in time, and effectively getting to where Thrawn is in the command center of the ship, and pulls through Purrgil. Purrgil that we saw a couple seasons back, which Ezra has a force bond with, which is where the creation of hyperspeed and hyperfuel came from. Ezra then sacrificed himself to get the Purrgil to wrap around the Empire's ships, getting the Purrgil to take Thrawn, Ezra, and the rest of the Imperial fleet off somewhere into hyperspace, but we don't know where. There's then a hologram message to the Ghost crew that Ezra pre-recorded, saying that he had to do this and sacrifice himself, telling them that he loves them all and hopes to be back soon with his family. He also tells Sabine that he's counting on her, but she doesn't know what for. We then get a flash forward to a couple of years in the epilogue, where events of the original trilogy have already happened, and the Empire is no more. Sabine has been looking after Lothal at this point, and we're looking at a memorial that she painted of the Ghost crew and her old friends. We see Ahsoka step into frame, and with narration, she says it's time to bring Ezra home. Other than this, we don't know anything else about what happened between this time. The next time we see Ahsoka is obviously in The Mandalorian, where she's looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn, and that's about all we know. I've missed out a lot of information there, but I'd say that's the most essential plot points, and I definitely recommend watching Star Wars Rebels. The end of Season 2 and end of Season 4 last few episodes are, to me, the peak of all Star Wars, and I know that'll probably get me some hate, but each to their own, you know? Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions when watching Ahsoka about anything that connected to Rebels that doesn't exactly make sense to you, let me know. I'll try and do a video on it.